About History series. Water conservancy construction in Taiwan during the Qing dynasty.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the forgotten engineering marvels that absolutely transformed Qing dynasty Taiwan into a total agricultural powerhouse. When we think of historical economic miracles, we rarely picture dirt, sweat, and irrigation trenches. But today, we're going to look at a truly remarkable story of human resilience, grassroots engineering that literally reshaped an entire island. Just look at this paradox. Despite sharing the exact same latitude, Taiwan was churning out 2 to 3 rice harvests every single year. Meanwhile, right across the strait in Fujian and Guangdong, they were barely managing 1 harvest a year. Think about that for a second. It's the same basic climate, the exact same era, yet Taiwan's land development was yielding up to triple the output. So what was the magic ingredient? Well, the key to this incredible output wasn't just naturally better soil or lucky weather. It was an immense, staggering network of over 700 irrigation facilities built right across the island over 211 years of Qing rule. Once the land was cleared, people obviously had to plant crops, mostly water-heavy stuff like rice and sugarcane. And to pull that off, they needed a wildly complex water supply system, which, by the way, they built essentially from scratch. So today, we're taking a geographic tour covering 5 key parts. We'll start with the apathy paradox, then look at the central pioneer, Babao, move on to the northern tragedy, Liu Gong, head down to the southern savior, Cao Gong, and finally synthesize the big 3. All right, part 1, the apathy paradox, government inaction versus local resilience. You're probably wondering, why on earth did the Qing government completely ignore this vital infrastructure for so long? Well, it was a total systemic failure. Officials served very short terms. That meant they knew they'd be back in their home provinces, sipping tea long before any monumental, multi-year water project could ever be finished. Plus, there was absolutely zero immediate financial profit in it for them. The result? The government just totally stepped back. If the locals wanted to eat and prosper, they literally had to grab a shovel and build the infrastructure themselves. And, well, that's exactly what they did. Moving on to part 2, Central Pioneer, Babao, the ancestor of water construction. Central Taiwan is full of high mountains and steep drops, which means rivers flood quickly and dry up just as fast. It is an absolute engineer's nightmare. But a local pioneer named Shi Shibang wasn't deterred. He started digging a canal at Ershui back in 1709 to draw water from the Zushui River. The construction was brutally difficult. Actually, it almost completely failed until a mysterious water expert, known to history only as Mr. Lin, suddenly stepped in to guide the project. After a full decade of relentless struggle, this monumental canal was finally completed in 1719. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is the sheer scale of this thing. This single project provided stable water to over 12,000 jia of land, which is a massive unit of agricultural measurement over there. It flowed through 103 villages. That covered more than half of the entire Changhua County at the time. I mean, talk about a total game changer for the region's survival. Now, because it was the earliest and largest Qing-era water project, its name actually evolved over time. Originally, they called it the Zhuoshui Canal after the river, but it was also known as the Shi Canal since it was technically a private endeavor of the Shi family. Eventually, though, it earned the famous name Babao. That translates roughly to the 8-Bao Canal because it successfully watered 8 out of the region's 13 local administrative divisions. Today, Shi Shibang is rightfully remembered as the true ancestor of Taiwan's water construction. Okay, let's head north for part 3, Northern Tragedy, Liu Gong, a 22-year struggle. So Guo Xiliu arrives in the Taipei area and immediately realizes the desperate need for irrigation. In 1740, the guy actually sells off his own personal property just to fund the start of a massive canal. He endures 22 agonizing years of construction, facing just countless setbacks. Finally, in 1762, it's finished. But the triumph was incredibly short-lived. Just 3 years later, in August 1765, a massive typhoon swept through Taipei. The heavy rains triggered landslides that utterly wiped out the canal. Guo Xiliu was so heartbroken that he died of depression shortly after. It was ultimately up to his son, Guo Yuanfen, to inherit the monumental task of rebuilding the whole thing. What's really fascinating here is the hidden history right beneath modern city streets. During those 22 years of construction, Guo's workers constantly faced attacks from local indigenous tribes. To protect his crew, Guo built watchtowers on higher ground, and he established these public halls to manage the water estate. If you visit Taipei today, you'll probably recognize these names: Guting, which comes from the word for those watchtowers, and Gongguan, named after those public halls. The modern map of the city was literally shaped by this canal project. How wild is that? But to reduce those fierce clashes, Guo didn't just hunker down and build defenses. He made a fascinating strategic and diplomatic move. He actually married an indigenous princess, forging a crucial alliance. Furthermore, he began hiring local indigenous workers to help finish the canal. It was a remarkable pivot from conflict to collaboration that allowed this massive project to finally push through that harsh northern terrain. Let's move down south for part 4, Southern Savior, Cao Gong, the exception to the rule. Enter Cao Jin in 1837, which is over a century after our first canal story, by the way. Cao Jin arrived as the new magistrate of Fengshan. He looks around and sees fields completely devastated by severe drought. But unlike all the officials before him, he actually took action. He drew water from the local river and spearheaded the excavation of 44 life-saving irrigation channels. This single-handedly rescued the harvests for 5 villages and over 2,500 jia of farmland. His impact was so immediate and honestly so profound that just 2 years later, in 1839, the local prefect officially named the canal Cao Gong, honoring Cao's great deeds. By 1842, they expanded the network with 46 new channels. Almost overnight, dry fields had stable water, which massively elevated agricultural production in the greater Kaohsiung area. The local people were so deeply grateful for an official who actually gave a damn that in 1860 they built the Cao Gong Temple to worship and remember his contributions forever. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, the Big Three synthesized. Putting all of these events together reveals a really fascinating progression. It all started in 1709 with the central pioneer work of a private local citizen, Shi Shibang. Then it moved north in 1740 through the tragic, decades-long struggle of another private citizen, Guo Xiliu. And it wasn't until almost a century later, in 1837, that we finally see a southern government solution driven by the magistrate Cao Jin. Together, these 3 wildly different projects represent the absolute monumental effort required to turn an island into a thriving agricultural powerhouse. Which leaves us with a rather profound question to end on today. When we walk through modern city neighborhoods or look out over thriving landscapes, how much of our current prosperity relies entirely on the forgotten, backbreaking infrastructure built by the resilient generations before us? It really makes you look at a simple canal or even a neighborhood name in a completely different light. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.